Maya Angelou wrote, "Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise." And so many of us were able to rise because of inspirational words like that. Hello, I'm Mable Scott. Some of you know me as Able Mable, your princess of poetry and praise, and we're so thankful to have you here at the beautiful Eden Library in Eden, North Carolina. And I want to especially share some things with you from my new memoir, 38126 King's Kids. Nobody said we were poor. 38126 King's Kids. Nobody said we were poor. And I want you to realize that this was my special project after I retired a few months ago from Rockingham County government. And I just miss all of you all so much. But I retired, and the Lord laid on my heart to do something to keep me busy and do something productive. And I just started sitting down at my computer and typing. And I ended up typing things that happened when I was, oh my God, just a little bitty kid, probably over 65, 67 years ago. And as I was typing what would end up becoming this book, I thought about, well, what are you going to do with the monies that you receive when you sell the book? And I remembered as a student in college, and I'm sure many of you may have had the same issue, it was very, very tough going to college as far as monies and having what you needed to get everything that you needed to buy. And we were so happy to get those little care packages with the saltines and the sardines and the Vienna sausages and all those little canned goods, the Oreo cookies and whatever that was sent to us, because we would be starving a lot because we had run out of money. And in running out of money, that meant I was not able to buy some of the books that I needed. But God always provided a way out of no way. And there were people on campus who either had books that they needed to sell so they could buy their lunch and dinner for the next day, or there were people who were willing to just let me use their book, or there were people who would say, well, help me write this paper and I'll be more than happy. So we had a bartering system too, but you had to have some kind of skill to barter. But I'm so thankful that through it all, we made it out of college. And that's when I said, whatever money I receive by selling these books, we're going to just invest that in future students to keep them going in school, because we know how difficult it is. And over the last few years, by selling our books, we've been able to provide monies to children, to young people at Bennett College, Cleveland Community College, Hampton University, North Carolina A&T State University, Rockingham Community College, UNC Greensboro, UNC Pembroke, UNC Wilmington, and within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be traveling to Memphis, my hometown, and hopefully we'll have some money that we can leave at the HBCU there, Lemoyne-Owen College, where one of my former pastors served as the development officer, and he was the one who raised a lot of the millions of dollars that Lemoyne-Owen was able to garner in order to send many of my friends to school. So it just shows you it's an evolving door where all of us have to just give back to help others because we understand what they're going through. So I'm just going to read a couple of things in several parts of this book just to let you know what the book is all about. 38126 King's Kids. Nobody said we were poor. My hubby, Paul, sitting over here, better known as Brother Paul, says Greensboro, North Carolina is home for us now, but I can never forget my original hometown, Memphis on the Mississippi. Maybe it's the wonderful stories I heard as a child about this warm, sunny, musical Mecca where folks were family on Beale Street. from celebrating historic Tom Lee Park to parking my car on River Bluff cobblestones to having a terrific time on the Memphis Queen, rolling on the river. Memphis will always be in my heart. And I think about all the times in high school and after high schools, we were on riverboats all the time, parties. When I worked in Memphis in promotions in radio, we had, oh my goodness, somebody's calling trying to get directions. As I was saying, even when I worked in radio, and I worked at a number of the number one radio stations in Memphis after I had graduated from college. Any of you all ever heard of Rick Dees, the Disco Duck? Disco Duck. I worked with Rick Dees at 2 different stations. So imagine Rick Dees and Able Mable. Oh my goodness. We stayed in trouble, but guess what? As long as the money was flowing, the bosses were happy. So we were keeping people happy. But the River City, Memphis was just a beautiful place to be, and that's why I decided to write about it. The River City has always been part of our family for over a century on both my mother and my father's side. On mommy's side and on daddy's side, our family settled in Memphis, and we all attended the same schools, the same neighborhood churches. When I was doing genealogy, especially with some of my friends in the Mormon Church and the Church of Latter-day Saints, I found out that my great-grandparents lived down the street from Dr. Benjamin Hooks' family. You all know him. He was a Federal Communications Commissioner, chairman on a national basis. He was also the head of the NAACP. He was a pastor. He grew up in the same church that I grew up in. But Memphis just has so much history. And that's why I thought this book would be a good thing to share with you. And the reason why I named it King's Kids was because in so many of the sermons that I've heard, many of our pastors and evangelists always refer to us as King's Kids because we think and we know that God is our King, and we are the part of his kingdom. We are the heirs. We are special people. And that's why I named it King's Kids. But some people thought I named it King's Kids because Dr. King was assassinated in the neighborhood where we grew up in, where the Lorraine Motel was. So King's Kid lived in 38126. This is near downtown Memphis. In South Memphis, Soul Town. Our number 2 walkers kept us slim and trim by sliding and gliding with a soulful swag from Beale Street to Macklemore and from Neptune to 2nd and 3rd Street. And when I refer to number 2 walkers, that means that we walked everywhere. We didn't have a car or a truck then, and so everybody just walked everywhere. So you could pig out on soul food and not worry about gaining weight because you were walking every day. We pigged out because pounds slipped away just strolling to school, work, church, and waving at neighbors, chilling on the front porch with filterless cigarettes. You remember when your daddies used to smoke those cigarettes without it? Oh, my God, that's why my daddy's in heaven now. Waving at the neighbors, chilling on the front porch with filterless cigarettes, sweet-smelling cigars, and spittoon tin cans for snuff and chewing tobacco. Do y'all remember that? Long hot summers minus no air conditioning forced folks to drink ice cold water, sweet tea, real sweet Southern tea, tasty lemonade, and syrupy Kool-Aid. If somebody's mama was eating starch, we knew they would soon be getting a new brother or sister. Did you all ever hear about that? See, and we're all from different parts of the country. The living was easy, the fish were jumping, the cotton was high, but the babies weren't crying as they sipped pot liquor. Who sipped on pot liquor? Y'all remember that? Y'all know what pot liquor is? When you cook collard greens or white navy beans, the juice, that's pot liquor. You probably had pot liquor, but you don't remember as a baby. Mashed up pinto beans, pureed collards, personally mushed from mama's mouth. Remember when they used to chew the food and then put it in your mouth as a baby? Mama them nurtured us naturally off fresh fruits and vegetables, free fish from the fishing dudes, and fried chicken only on Sunday. We stayed healthy, wealthy, and wise, wearing who had homemade clothes? Hand-me-downs, made out of flour sacks, sugar sacks, meal sacks, herbal remedies around our necks. Did any of you all wear one of those little things around your neck? Y'all know what I'm talking about? It was a little sash, and they put some kind of herbs in it. I know I can remember smelling garlic, but we never got sick. I think that unwritten rules and boundaries were ingrained in our hearts, minds, and souls to protect us during the stormy seas of segregation, because we knew things were a little different, but they never really talked that much about it. Some outsiders may have been nervous to tiptoe through tulips in 38126, but we had unity in our community with several large housing projects in our high school feeder zone, and we attended the Booker T. Washington High School in Memphis, Tennessee. You all are familiar with Booker T and the MGs? Hey, that's my high school. Y'all know about the Barcades? Hey, that's my high school. I can just name, there are many more. I mentioned Ben Hooks a few minutes ago. One of the mayors of Washington, D.C. was from our high school. And Earth, Wind, and Fire's founder from our high school. When our kids were born, Paul and I wanted to make sure that Paul, Wayne, and Joshua understood their roots and what they missed as children growing up during a better time. And I wrote this paragraph. It was hard for our kids to understand prejudice and racism because when they went to school, everybody just played together. Everybody just was hugging hands. I mean, I went my whole K-12 school environment, all chocolate children. I never went to class with any vanilla children until I went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. It was just the opposite for my children. My kids came home one night singing country western songs. And that's when I knew, I said, yes, we are integrated now, you know? I want to leave you all with this story. I'll never forget a lesson that I learned in Handy's Park on Beale Street. My uncle's dentist's office was right across the street from Beale Street, and I could see this tall bronze statue of W.C. Handy, the father of the blues, every day when I went to work, because I worked from the age of 3 on up. I had to work. They had me answering phones, taking messages, dancing, singing, doing scriptures, anything to quiet down anybody screaming when my uncle was pulling their tooth. That was my job. But let me tell you what happened. People would naturally speak, pass by, and if they knew you, they would give you a nickel, a dime, or a quarter. Remember when people used to do that? This stinky, drunk dude in the middle of the morning passed by us, tipped his hat, and gave me a penny. To my indignation, I threw the penny down on the dry, hot pavement, when suddenly I thought my grandmother was trying to body slam me. Y'all remember Jerry Lawler? I used to work with Jerry Lawler at a radio station. I thought I was looking at a Memphis wrestling match and my grandmama was throwing me down. Dear spanked my little legs like I had robbed a bank. She told me it didn't matter how someone smelled, looked, dressed, or talked. I must give them respect, like Aretha said. Then she pushed me down the street, made me apologize to the inebriated gentleman who was still drunk and tell him how much the penny meant to me. That's the way we were taught. I mean, no matter who people were, we were taught to show them respect, and we were taught to act right. And if we didn't, we got beat 2 or 3 times because somebody else was going to tell what had happened. We're going to go around the room and just ask all of you all if you have anything that you want to share that you think is important, because this is what young people know. They need to know people struggle. I mean, going in McDonald's, being able to order what you want to order, or being able to go to a fancy restaurant and order lobster and, you know, we couldn't do that. We just couldn't do that. And so, Brother Paul, will you share some things with
I don't know what to share. Amen. When you are married to a confident woman, you get pulled into things that you know you didn't necessarily bargain for. But hey, it is what it is. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. But it's good to see you all out here today. I'm just going to share just a few items that I experienced in my life. When my wife wrote this book and I started looking at it and reading it, it made me think about what I went through as a child. And then I got to realizing, thinking that my parents shielded us from a lot of this that we really didn't even know was going on. Unlike my wife, I was in school all of my life up until the 12th grade with chocolate students. My last year of high school, or my last year of school, they presented us with the opportunity to attend the all-white high school on a voluntary basis. Now, y'all might think I'm crazy, and when I look back on it, I probably was. But two of my friends and myself, we volunteered to go. Didn't know what we were getting into, but the Lord protected us because we didn't have not one single problem. They accepted us. I got my degree, and one of the reasons I went there was because I wanted to go to an accredited college. And the only way you could do that, you had to come from an accredited high school. Well, unfortunately, my high school that I was at was not accredited. But anyway, I got that done. Then I matriculated out of high school, then went to North Carolina A&T for a year and left there. Here again,
Tennessee State.
what did I say? North Carolina A&T. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Got A&T. I got A&T. I got A&T. Now Tennessee State University in Nashville, and going to school, and then I started hearing about the University of Tennessee in the state of in the state of Tennessee, right up the road about 200 miles. Well, then I could hear about the students there. They had private rooms. They had private suites. They had maid service. They had an Olympic pool. They had all this stuff. And come find out, my parents, I paid for my own college. But anyway, I'm paying the same money to go to school that other folks are paying, and they get a whole lot more. Of course, here again, I'm a daredevil. So I said, hey, I'm flipping out of here. I'm going to enroll at the University of Tennessee. And if you can imagine being on the campus with thousands of students, when I say thousands, and you only have maybe 200 or 300 African Americans on that campus. Every classroom I was in, I was the only one. That plays in your mind physically, and I had one instructor. I was in, I think it's an English class, I believe, English. And you're in the auditorium because it's not a classroom, it's like an auditorium. I mean, like several hundred students in this one classroom. And the teacher called out and said, Mr. Scott. I'm thinking, what the devil is that? And I'm the only black person in the room. I said, here. He said, how should I teach you? And I said, how should you teach me? I said, the best thing you can do is teach the class. I'll get it. I'll catch it. You ain't got to do nothing special for me. That's why I'm sitting up in here. You know what I mean? I don't need you to do nothing special for me. If you want to do something special for me, you give me an A and keep it moving.
My parents did what a lot of black parents did to protect their children. And I know my maturity level makes me look a little younger than I am, but I will be 64 this year, so I'm here. Okay? So God is good. God is good. Anyway, when they had the opportunity, my dad went in the military. So I didn't even grow up in this country. I remember being 6 years old and being mad at Kennedy and Dr. King because they made my mother cry. That's how little we knew. However, that's a good thing because when we came back to the States and my folks retired, they retired in Atlanta. And they had always put us in these Catholic schools, and we were like, just take us out of Catholic school. I am Catholic, I can say this. Okay, so I just take us out of Catholic school. Just let us do something else, just one time. So she said, okay, put us in this school in Atlanta. Didn't know that the Diocese of Atlanta had just sold it to the public school system, and the nuns were going to be there for 2 years. I was only there for 2 years. But here was the thing about at school, is Dr. King's kids walked through the halls. Julian Bond walked through the halls. You know, John Lewis walked through our halls. They always walked through our halls to tell us who we were. They didn't ever tell us we couldn't. They told us all the reasons we could. And I think when you get that and you understand that, so we became tutors at the King Center. My sister taught dance, I did reading and poetry and that sort of thing. So when you get that, you understand that it's not always about what you can't do, and it is, I agree with you, you must know who you are. We marched. I had bullets flying over my head. You know, it's but God that I did what I did. But at the same time, I realized very quickly that we also do a disservice to our children. And I think we have to be honest about that too, because yes, they need to know. Yes, I hated having that talk with my son, but I also told him, if you fight for the bottom, you're going to live there. And I think we have to tell our children that, because that's what my parents told me. So I saw it. Only place, and I really want to make this clear, only place anybody's ever used the N-word on me to my face was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So don't think it's a Southern thing. Don't think it's just a Southern thing.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Watlington. I live in Reedsville. I went to Booker T. Washington High School, and the year that we were graduating, our senior year, was when the schools integrated, and they asked for volunteers. Well, I was my mama's only baby. She was 37 when I was born. She was not going to send me to that school, so I didn't go. But one, Dr. Logan, who was a minister in Reedsville, his son went, and one of my cousin's daughters went. So that was when segregation started. And then I went to Livingstone College in Salisbury, and I graduated from Livingstone, and the head of human resources in Livingstone went to a predominantly black school. So he came to the South to recruit black people to move to New Jersey to work in different departments. They came, they interviewed people who were interested. They came back and brought the New Jersey state test down here, and they set us in a room and we took the test. I passed, I moved, and I worked in Camden, New Jersey, in the State Employment Security Commission until I transferred back to the employment office here. But while I was living there and looking for an apartment, I had one lady, sweet young lady, who let me stay with her until I could get my apartment. She lived in Collinswood, New Jersey. Collinswood was all white. Down the road was all blacks. I waited at the bus stop to catch the bus into Camden. And the bus would come in, and all the black people were sitting in the back, and the white people would get in the front. Well, I was at the bus stop, and a car pulled up, a family, and this lady looked right at me, and I read her lips. She said, "I didn't know black people lived here." And I looked at her and I said, "I didn't either."
But I ended up getting a job with the county in the food stamp department when they used to have food stamps that they would sell at a counter. So anyhow, I was one of the people, was the substitute person to sell food stamps. And the two ladies who normally did it had to go to the next town that morning and came back after lunch. Well, when they came back after lunch, the boxes of food stamps were still outside on the counter. It was like a bank, you know, with all the rails and stuff. And they said, "Why didn't you put these in the safe?" And this one lady was just really, I think, vindictive. Didn't like me. And they didn't like me only because I was a Yankee. I mean, I was a Yankee. I didn't sound like them. I didn't go to school there. I didn't, know the things that they knew. And so even though there might have been, and I'm sure there were some other instances that caused some discomfort, they were things that I could get over pretty easily. But this was one that was really tough because of the fact that I left those out, not really knowing what they wouldn't tell you what you were supposed to do. It's just that you knew about it after it happened. So when they came back, they said, "You left these out. I'm going to tell the director." They told the director, and the rule was at the end of each day, you had to count every food stamp, every one that was sold and every one that was remaining. So what they did was told her, and I had to count every food stamp, not just those that I left out, but those that were in the safe that had never been opened. I mean, that was mean. It was mean. I'd lived through it, but I never forgot it. And the lesson was not just a negative lesson. The lesson was a positive lesson. And it was watch and be aware of the rules. Follow the rules. Know where you are. Know who you are. And I knew that I was okay, but she had a problem with me. And so that was a good lesson for me.
We appreciate everything that you've said today. You've said some stories that made me think even harder about being a Yankee, about being a history teacher at this moment in time. That's really a lot. And we have a lot on our shoulders right now, and we can make America everything that we want America to be. Because remember, this is the America that we all grew up. Remember when we were little kids, ever since we were knee-high to a duck, as they used to say, and we all stand up and say, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." And that really made a real mark in my mind, my heart, and my soul.